What's going on, everybody? I think we are live now. What's going on? I'm Justin Thomas. This is TopShelf Fandom. Welcome to this side of the throne. We are going to be discussing the first episode of Season 8, Winterfell. I believe they have finally named it. Going a little bit after the ball there, but carriage before the horse. But I am joined with Axel Foley from Podcast Winterfell, Mackenzie Burns, and Johnny B. Crazy from their respective channels. So I'm going to go around and introduce everybody quickly, and then we're going to dive right into it, people. And if you guys have any questions in the chat whatsoever, just ask away, because that's why we're doing this live instead of recording it and then cutting all of our nonsense out. We're here because we want to interact. So let us know.
Because we want to keep the nonsense in. That's why.
Yes. Yes. Speaking of nonsense, introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Axel. I'm from Podcast Winterfell. You can subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're going to try that tonight after this show. We're going to see if it works. We do a live fan call-in where you can call in to a phone number and talk. We'll see if that works out. We'll at least do the call. We'll do the phone number part. The video part, we'll see. But you can subscribe to our podcast. We do 4 shows a week. Initial reaction when the show is over. On Monday night, we do this fan call-in. Wednesday, we're doing a deep dive, which is me and Heath. And Friday, we do feedback. And then I also jump on and do these things. Thank you, Justin, for having me. It's a pleasure to be on here with you two as well. Bye.
No, absolutely. And thank you for coming on. All nonsense aside, Axel is one of my closest buddies on here, and somebody that I look to for insight, because you have such a wide range of knowledge, and you actually, did make films and stuff like that. So it's always a pleasure to have you on, and make sure to check out Axel on all the numerous platforms that he's on. We'll put him in the link below. Mackenzie, tell everybody about yourself.
Hi, everybody. And I think this is like the first, or no, this may be the second time I'm on with you on your channel, Justin, but hello. I basically just, happy to join you all, and I will actually be covering this episode, I think, with Justin again, maybe on Wednesday night for my own channel. So, yeah, well, it'll be fun, and we're gonna have so much fun.
We may be there, but, probably will. I will be there as well. I am Johnny B. Crazy, and I am taking over. No, thanks so much for having me on, Justin. It's a pleasure to be on with you, Axel and Sasa. Pleasure as always. Yeah, nice episode. Was a lot of setup. We're going to get into it. We have a lot to talk about, I believe. And thanks, chat, for coming out.
Absolutely. And we will be there on Wednesday. I put it in my calendar, Mackenzie, so I can't wait. I don't think that we will be any closer to answers, and that's part of the fun. It's a speculation setup. So let's start there. Really quickly, and this goes for me as well. One thing that you learned about our situation that you didn't know before the episode. I'll start. I didn't know that everybody was going to be so sure that the Lannister army wasn't coming, and Tyrion was going to be so sure that they were. That took me by surprise. Axel?
One thing that took me by surprise was how this was the biggest surprise of the episode for me, how angry Sam got that Dany killed his brother and father. I was really surprised that he allowed the emotionality of that experience kind of, in a sense, darken and give focus to telling Jon that he was the king, I guess he did tell me he was the king, but what his real lineage was. I really was surprised that had such an effect on the scene. I thought that was going to go down so much differently. And the focus of it was going to be, hey, Jon, this is you. And he'd be able to take it in. But really, it was more kind of like, what's Dany going to do about this? What does this have to do with the future? And it brought up a whole host of issues.
Yeah, I want to get into that. That's I don't want to cut you short. I just want to say that's one of my things I got marked down. I felt we're going to talk about that in depth. You're absolutely correct.
I'm sure. But that was for me, just the surprise of how Sam really just kind of made
animosity.
That into something
else. Mad. He did it out of anger. Yeah. So we're going to touch on that. Mackenzie, one thing that you learned this episode that was shocking, something that's going to affect our story.
Probably that Daenerys is not as emotional as I thought about losing having a child, her dragon, become a slave to the Night King. Like, that was a huge thing that she mentioned. Like, that's like a dragon is not a slave, and then for the fact that when Bran says, "Yeah, the Night King has your dragon," it's just like not even an emotional scene after it. It's just cut right to let's talk about logistics.
I totally agree with you. I thought the same thing. I was like, she's not. I thought when she went with John, they were going to talk about it.
Yep. When we're going to talk about that, because I have that marked down as well. We're going to talk about how much of Bran is still present, because there's a little bit of information going both ways, evidence going both ways, and I'll present it in a moment. Johnny, one thing that you learned, or it doesn't have to be something that surprised you, but one thing you didn't know before.
I didn't know that you could just jump on a dragon and take off willy-nilly. No, it was very surprising to see how dumbed down Tyrion was, in my opinion. I was hoping his character would get lifted up a little more after these past couple of seasons, and we're kind of stuck on ball jokes. But y'all covered a lot of what really was surprising to me, so I will say that was pretty surprising to me as far as Tyrion's role, and I would agree with you, Justin.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that's I want to bring that up because we're gonna discuss in a moment if we think that maybe he is being you know, a little bit he's trying to deceive maybe more than maybe he's being stupid. He's playing some game, because I never understood the exact agreement he came to with Cersei. It seems that everybody knows that's nonsense. It seems like he should know it's nonsense. So was it something we didn't see? You know, are they just shining a light again on one of their plot holes of showing an intelligent person be stupid in order to have conflict? So yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, it opened up, and I'll admit that the episode fell a little flat on me. But at the beginning of the episode and at the end of the episode, if you want to say, you know, when you got the feels, that was it for me. I was just really in awe, and I knew screenwriting 101 is mirror the opening of your pilot for your opening of your first episode of your last season. They did that almost really just right on point, and I thought it was really well done. And you know, a million people have talked about that already, but it's just very effective. It's a rule because it's effective. I enjoyed it. I like to see the kind of parallel storytelling with, you know, now we have them marching north to help, not coming to the north for help from the south, and so forth. So I think that one thing that we learned for sure, what they wanted to establish, is that they're not all united front, right? We all like to think that Independence Day is a real thing. Like once aliens come or once the big other comes, everybody puts their bullshit aside and they start working together. Well, we see that that's, you know, I think that speaks truth to our real world as well. And it's a little bit of a optimist approach to the situation. We see that they're not a united front. They do have an issue with Dany and Jon. Axel, were you surprised about how much of an issue they have with Jon giving up his crown that they gave to him?
You know what? I really wasn't. I wasn't at all. I was waiting for somebody to say something. And, you know, you saw it on the faces of the people as Dany rode in. Some people were looking in awe, but a lot of them were really stone-faced. It wasn't a very happy welcome. I think people are uneasy not only about the impending winter and the fight coming and what people even know of it, you know, the common folk, but I didn't think it was going to take very long for anyone to stand up, and little Lady Mormont did it, and I can see where they're coming from. I mean, it's a confusing situation, and let's not forget that as soon as Jon left, they were like, "Hey, Sansa, why are you doing this?" And she had to they challenged her, and she had to stand up and do it. So it's like a lot of it is testing, you know, they're testing. And it's like what I see the similar thing in Arya and Jon. She's kind of testing them. A lot of Winterfell is like a testing ground, right? And yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, they're not going to take off and nobody support them, but some people are not. You know, they're finding that they're not getting support from certain people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the, you know, what you said about Dany. A lot of people thought she was smug on the way in. You see her look to the people for their love, or at least their support, or at least not their animosity. And they have scared looks, disapproving looks about the Savages coming, about the Targaryens coming. So when we see the classic, if I can't have your love, you'll take my fear. So her dragons fly over right after that. They're visibly spooked. She looks happy about that because it just goes with her ideology, the way she approaches rule. And I don't really have a huge issue with it. As far as the
Oh, I thought it was me. I'll kind of pick up a little bit. If you want me to.
Are you there, buddy?
Yeah. No. You know, good generals think tactics, great generals think logistics. So is a saying, and you know, I like that that's playing a role. You know, push or shove, you still do have to feed that army. It's an issue. I'm going to pass this on in a moment. I'm mixed on how I feel about their treating Sansa because I'm a big Sansa, you know, supporter, and I feel that usually they have her act just, you know, obscenely stupid or obscenely brash in order to have conflict. This episode gave us a little bit of both. I do feel if anybody would have the nuances of court life down, it's Sansa. She was so good at keeping that public perception in King's Landing. The whole time was literally her being beat, like horrible stuff happened to her, but she would never break. She would always say, I love Joffrey and stuff. She understood the power of that. And then even in the Vale, she learns. And then obviously with Ramsay, it was not good. Spoiler alert. But we see a person that should know the power of, you know, like of the public perception. So she is like openly bringing up issues and going against Jon and Dany when you would think she'd be the one smart enough to say that's probably not, it needs to be addressed, but let's address it in a more like productive way, you know, unless she's making a you know, like a run for the crown, meaning like she's like kind of like campaigning, which I don't buy. You know, it makes a little sense, but I do like how they shipped her through Arya because they know that people just love Arya. So they had Arya tell Jon that she is the smartest. I really did enjoy that. That was like a good little narrative tool to utilize Arya in that way. You know, have her say she is the smartest one, because then everybody that hates Sansa has to deal with that and realize, okay, she is doing the right thing. What do you think about it, Mackenzie? The issues in the turmoil within the North.
It seems like a lot of this is predicted, what we all kind of thought with Jon arriving, thinking that maybe everything will be maybe okay, that she'll face some potential problems, and that the sisters may not like Daenerys at all, which obviously is evident. And then when, like Axel said, when Lyanna speaks up, he kind of has no words to say because what she is saying is pretty much correct. Like, we elected you king and you gave it away. Why? Now what do we call you? Do we call you Prince? Do we call you Warden of the North? Like, what do we call you? And it's her, in, I guess, a 12-year-old girlish way of saying, which head are you thinking with? Honestly, it's like, what are you doing? Like, are you thinking that you're in love with this person and you're going to marry her? Sure, that may work. But if you're going to rule us, you have to do it properly. And it's kind of like leading in the direction of maybe Sansa can do it better. Like, that was a thing of contention almost last season of, can Sansa actually do it on her own? Can she keep them all in line and keep them safe and all of these other things? And maybe she can if Jon becomes almost not inebriated, but if he has to worry about his whole parentage thing and he goes through that emotional breakdown and dealing with Daenerys and the war and all of the stuff, who's going to be there to pick up the pieces? Because like she says to him in a private conversation, when Lord Glover is like, I'm not coming, did you bend the knee to save the North, or did you bend the knee because you love her? Like, asking him that honest question of, let me know so I know how to take care of everybody else.
Yeah, is Jon's heart ruling the kingdom? Yeah, I don't like Lyanna Mormont. I do think that people won't like it. I wish it would have been her at the end instead of Umber. I cannot stand her beating mouth. She is so, I know people love her, but okay, she needs to be quiet. I'd be like, and Lord will work when your head's still on. That's what I am.
Man,
it was good work. I don't know what to call you. It was, I don't even know what you are anymore. I'm like, I'm a man. Okay, I'll prove it. And, but yeah, it is interesting. Yeah,
she's like 8.
Don't take it that way. I'll prove it by killing you.
No, I just mean like, she's tough. She has to, you know.
No, she's out of line. She's been out of line for 2 seasons.
Can I comment? I like what Mackenzie said. Oh, Johnny, you go ahead, buddy, because I've been talking.
Well, I mean, as far as the North goes, this is almost pretty simple. You go back to the books. You even go to Fire and Blood, the Dance of Dragon, the Wolves of Winter, the old men and the feeble. They come to die. They will go to war because there is no food. It's very sparse in the North. Yes, Sansa has been trying to save up, but they probably barely have enough for themselves. And there's a giant army coming. All those faces you saw watching Jon and Dany come in were hungry faces. And this completely mimics the first episode where Robert and Cersei came and they had food problems, but this is completely exacerbated now. And food, that is life. And that will just make people as mad. We might have a small mini revolution of the people before the Night King even gets there, because there's hungry mouths, there's fear, and that's just what happens in these real life normal situations. And I agree with all y'all's points.
Absolutely. And that's important to remember that. And we see a little bit of this, and we'll get to Yara in a moment, but that's a good point, because we need to remember that if they're looking to save this world, we need to think about the world after. So, like, Jon is a good wartime leader, and he's doing what you need. I look at him as being like, he's not. Churchill was a good wartime leader. You notice he doesn't do too well after. Jon doesn't have any of his, qualities, the bad ones, I'm saying. But it's just, Jon is got a mind for this war. And after that, I don't think it'll be an issue. I think he's going to not be there one way or another. But yeah, Yara speaks to that. They might need somewhere to go if this doesn't go well, and so forth. We do have to realize that, the whole world isn't ending, at least in their eyes. Everybody does believe they're going to survive. And I will assure you they will. I don't know how many of them, but yeah, it's interesting. The one big kicker for it, and I think the real dog dropping that they threw on the people was the Lannister army, because that wound is still really fresh. So Tyrion, somebody they're not keen on to begin with, drops a bomb that the Lannister army is coming as well, and that just, War of the Five Kings is fresh in their mind, so that wound is fresh. And we also have to go back to Tyrion's speech about who's by Dany's side when she goes to conquer. It looks like he might not be the best person to be by her side now, ironically. He is not the best face of that administration. So, yeah, I think that it's interesting. I like that they're showing that not everything's just going to be okay, because you can't get rid of all of the nuances of the geopolitical stuff and the struggle within, both internally and externally, and then go have your high fantasy magic battle. That's what makes that battle more entertaining and more impactful, is seeing the people that maybe are struggling come with each other and help each other, or not help each other. We see people can still be dicks even in times of crisis. It doesn't make everybody into perfect people.
Usually they're more that way.
Yeah. And it's interesting to take note too, that, and this is what I'm going to pose to you guys next, is what is Jon going to do with his knowledge now that he's finally got it? I just want to bring up that they did make a point to show the lords didn't come. Glover was one of the main ones that swore to Jon right away. They really showcased that it was the lords that bent the knee to Jon, just not too long ago and on screen, that weren't showing up to support Jon. So if you're Dany, and I did release that video yesterday because I was really, I really like how season 7, not how they got to any of these places, but how you have it's kind of like one long campaign for everybody saying why they should be the person in charge or why they shouldn't. And they really are, it's a good showcase of their true character versus the characterization of them. And it's a lot of these conversations with Jon and Dany, and then people speaking about why they follow these people like Davos, why the people follow Jon, why people follow Dany. Dany having Jon, bend the knee might seem like her being petty or, just a moot point, just let's go get things done. But we see how quickly lords don't honor their vows, right? So it's not like, oh, we'll forget about all that till after, because people are not loyal. So she needs to cement her rule down. If she really wants to rule the 7 kingdoms again, she has to think about the aftermath. So letting Jon keep his crown during that would be very harmful to her rule after. I mean, because again, all these lords just bent the knee after they got forgiven. They're right back to not doing what is best for the realm. So I'll go to Johnny first, and we'll go in reverse back. What you think about Dany's, decision to have Jon be in this compromising situation? Because I think it's fair to say this would be a little bit easier on him right now if he still had his crown.
Well, it would, but I think John did this, going back to Kenzie's point about what Sansa said. I think John did bend the knee, and he happened to fall in love. This is a mimicking Egret situation. They've done this on purpose. This complete first episode has mirrored the pilot, and I kind of disagree with you because I feel like Dany thinks she deserves it and doesn't have to earn it. And John is willing to go along with what's best for the right now. We've seen this with what happened with Mance. We've seen this with the wall. He got killed for this, and I still don't think he's going to give up his moral values if death is an option, because he doesn't seemingly care at this point. Honor is all he has until now that he finds out he's actually king. And this throws a complete wrench in everything. And I feel like John won't want to talk about it, but it's going to get brought up. And we might have a great council of 101 type situation, which started off the Dance of Dragons, where Lenore Valerian was cast. Rhaenyra was chosen over Lenore Valerian, causing all of this stuff between the Greens and the Blacks. And I think it could be flipped reverse, right? And Dany may see this as a man gets it and a woman doesn't, because that's the whole deal with the Dance of Dragons. And it's set up that way because Dany hasn't been telling John the whole truth, and John hasn't been completely honest with her about every single thing. It's weird. It's a fun situation. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I want to come back to Dany. Not you feel that Dany has been completely honest with John. That's interesting. Mackenzie, do you think that John would be better off to just relinquish the rule and maybe have Sansa come in? I think that could be an end result of this, because if he does, go take some, denounce his claim to the throne, then that would put Sansa as in charge of the North. So then she has to deal with Dany, and we get to see how that goes.
It could be very much a situation where he could have felt manipulated in a sense to bend the knee, because that's at the position he thought that it could be. But yes, you could say, like Johnny said, there is the mirroring of the Egret situation, going in wanting to do what was right, which was to infiltrate the wildlings, and then ultimately falling in love with Egret and having to go back on his word, so to speak. So it's going down to make an alliance. Duty. Yeah. Going down, making an alliance, falling in love, and then having to either have her die or somewhat sacrifice her for the greater good, ultimately leaving him in the position of power. But I feel like she might have done what she had to do, which was just repeatedly ask him to, because what is that thing? It's like once you say it multiple times, it'll eventually happen, like osmosis or like manifestations. Like, it's hard for her to judge how the North was going to react, because she hasn't known anybody from there, even though she's been repeatedly told they're not going to like you. They're not going to like you. And I feel she may want to rule with intimidation, because when we see later, sort of, right before the dragon conversation, she says, your sister doesn't like me. And basically that's a problem. And it's almost inflecting that there may be something that she has to do, which she may not like and that John doesn't like, and to maybe get rid of Sansa, so to speak.
Yeah, well, they've sold themselves to each other in the way of they have pitched their best pitch
like
to each other all last season, but they have not pitched themselves to their respective populace. So it's another ball, and they see a lot of savages coming plus dragons. It is interesting, and it's love versus duty for John again, and now he has turned down love and picked duty every single time so far. This might be the time that he picks love, and that would be bittersweet, quite bittersweet, because the duty is now the most is on the line. The stakes are the highest right now. So that, opportunity and risk are, you know, equal in measure. So that all goes in play. Axel, what do you think? Do you think that, you know, he's just going to denounce his claim and this is going to go away? Or do you think Danny's being a little bit brass about this or not?
Well, Justin, first of all, I just want to agree with you that the duty is on the line here. Okay. And nobody even laughed. The duty, get it?
I laughed. I chuckled. I'm muted.
I have a 6-year-old, guys. Come on. I thought that would bring down the house at my house. You'd be like, duty. Listen, I think that so much of this story would be solved if, like, a magical Buddhist appeared in Westeros and these people could accept duality, because they can't. You always have to be one or the other. Everything is an either or proposition in Westeros. And it's very frustrating, right? Like, Jon, he's Night's Watch, or he's Wildling, or he's Stark, or he's Bastard, or he's, you know what I mean? And just like, I think one of the most important scenes in my rewatch is when Jon and Theon met each other again. And Theon said, I don't know what I am. And Jon said to him, you're a Stark and you're Ironborn. You're both. And they can't accept that. And it seems that's like Dany can't accept that she could be both a kind of a duality of a regular human, a person with feelings and emotions who interacts with other humans, and this kind of super being Targaryen, you know, genetically altered by blood magic to ride dragons, which is what she is, right? She's a mutant. Mm-hmm. She's a genetic mutant. And in many ways, I think Jon is the genetic mutant of the North and Esso, whatever, you know, he's like fire and blood mutants together.
He's like a son of ice and fire.
Oh my God.
Toxic
you
Avenger?
know, the Starks. But to answer your question, I thought it was silly when she made him kneel that time, but she lets Yara have her thing. It's like piecemeal. So, but they all make mistakes, and that's okay. And part of this story that I enjoy is human beings are inconsistent. And I hope that by coming together, and maybe they should talk, like Johnny suggests, you know, like, let's have Davos say something. What does Tyrion have to say? What does Varys have to say? Let's get together and talk this out, because that's what the North is asking for too. Like Lady Mormont was just basically standing up and saying, Jon, can we have some communication here? Like, what's going on? Just tell us what the deal is. We could all figure it out and work together. But Jon and Dany are still caught very much in the methodology that they grew up in, which is their parents and the, like what Varys and the old man group was saying, right? And they need to actually accept who they are and their freedom and their newness and the new generation. And maybe they can kind of work it out without everybody going nuts. But from this story, that's not likely. People are going to get angry or something. But maybe they can actually
eat
work
your
it
broccoli,
out.
right? It's the eat your broccoli approach, kind of, you know, just take it as what's good for you kind of approach.
Yeah, because really,
that we're
listen, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to say one more thing.
Don't interrupt my interruptions.
Her claim to the throne is Jon's claim. So she can't delegitimize him. So once this information is found out, right, if she accepts it to be true and accepts Bran and all this magic that she's seen, which she's now accepting, right, no undead, she has to say, you know, we got to talk about this. Yeah. You know, and then Gendry's going to be like, what about me? I rode for 3 years for nothing.
Yeah, he needs to, you know, go back to not being appreciated.
It's like, I have Targaryen blood too.
Well, yeah, it's the birth claim. What Dany is what her motivation for the throne is her birth claim. She will not really go full out and demand people follow her because of that. Like I said, she will always try to win their love first, but she's very quick, you know, because that's the dragons, you know, to say, well, you know, again, if I can't earn it, because it seems to be hard, I might just, you know, get it through fear. But it is an interesting aspect, and she's for sure going to believe the information, because there wouldn't be any conflict if she couldn't, you know, grasp it and just dismissed it. So I think it's gonna be huge, and I didn't think it was gonna be played up that much. Before I was one of the naysayers, and I think it definitely is now.
If you
moving
can't
forward,
burn it, Justin. If you can't earn it, burn it.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, Justin? Are you happy that they're bringing all this up, or did you? Because I kind of liked it. I liked that they got this all out in the first episode because it's valuable. Like, I think if they want to fight for a future, they have to believe in a future, and this stuff is important to them.
Well, you need to state the theme in your first episode. You need to show, meaning you need to show everybody what the atmosphere is. So now we know it's very unstable and they're at each other's throats.
Yep.
This also leads to debate. Debate is always good for showing character, especially, you know, the characterization, what you say you're going to do and then what you do. So, you know, characterization than true character. So you have all these people with their different ideologies, different philosophies on rule, and they get to, you know, sell it to the people, then sell it to the other, you know, monarchs, and then we get to see what they do. And we all see people that are just trying to live, but they're trying to to literally figure out how they can live, but the way they go about existing, keeping existence, existing, keeping people alive is, different. So it's even the way we choose to save the world, can be a big debate. So let's move on, because I did like the mirroring of the first episode and so forth. I really thought it was impactful. And I am happy for this because, like I said, the series started off by showing us the White Walkers and establishing that there's magic and it's high fantasy. But then that goes in the backdrop. And we see all the geopolitical stuff. We see all of the really grounded, character-driven, like internal conflict of the first 3 to 4 seasons. And the reason that is so good and so compelling is because we are subverted from the expectation of high fantasy right away. They show us it, and then they put it in the background. So and I think it is done well, but even sometimes things that aren't as realistic are as close to the War of the Roses or the 14th century as we'd like to think, they seem more realistic because we've had this grounded world set up in a world that we do know for a fact has dragons, and at least at the very beginning we know there's zombie monsters walking around. So now what we're seeing is the epitome of high fantasy. We are at our watermark, you know what I mean? We're at the peak magic, peak high fantasy. We're flying on dragons. Johnny's got some stuff on this. I'm not so much about the whole dragon flying. I'm not against it. It was kind of just not going to have that big of an impact on me to begin with. But I do feel like on paper in 54 minutes, they dropped a lot of bombs and I felt a little underwhelmed by it. I feel their execution, as it seems to be the case, unfortunately, is not great. I feel they thought they did a lot more than they did. And it was lost on a lot of us. Yara being saved by Theon she just got saved, right? It's not like a big to do or anything. So it's interesting. I want to know when we get into the dragons. So Johnny's got some stuff here. What does dragon riding mean, Johnny, for the story? I know what it means. It means you ride a dragon. I guess you learn by riding a dragon, as Danny has said. She didn't learn that either in the books. She does have to learn how to do it, but I guess I'm not going to, take a few seasons of her learning how to ride the dragon. That doesn't work. But what I mean is, what does this do for this story? How does this change the game? Is this going to, in your opinion, change the way that the story unfolds with the resolution with the Night King? Is this going to play a part in maybe a civil war or something like the Dance of the Dragons? Maybe for more casual people that are watching, let them know what it means that he is now he's a mount. He's the mount for Rhaegal, right? He's accepted him as his dragon rider. So drop some knowledge on the people.
Okay, so this is a really huge deal. Yes, John got on there quickly. There are a couple of people in history, Maegor the Cruel being one, who just jumped on Balerion the Black Dread one day. There are a couple of people who did this. Now, once a dragon rider has been established, there is a mental bond. They seemingly have an emotional connection here. This may be bad news for Ghost, but this is also bad news for Dany, because Rhaegal is basically bonded, or you could almost say imprinted on Jon, if you want to use one of those type of terms. And this will lead to maybe a civil war. This is definitely going to come into play with the Night King. And, we will see a Dance of Dragons situation. And I do think Dany will die before Jon gets a chance to address the situation with his heritage and with actually coming to a head and becoming king. I don't think think we're going to have all this drama, and then we're going to have another egret situation to where he just doesn't get a chance to say what he wants to say or have this conflict resolution. And John, I believe, is going to be injured, and Rhaegal injured as well, giving a little bit back to the Rainies, the queen who never was, the battle over, can't remember where it was now, but Aegon II and Aemond. Aegon got really burned in his armor, and I don't know. It just really means that Rhaegal isn't Dany's anymore. That's the main takeaway here. If they're going straight by lore, right? One of Dany's children has grown up. is the biggest deal here, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry for rambling.
We just got a super Amber Lynn, one of the Patreons for TopShelf Fandom. Thank you so much, Amber. And actually, a conversation I just had with you kind of plays into this. I talked about how many times as a man I've had to impress a potential girlfriend's dog. I've found myself in many situations where no matter what, when you go into a household, especially if you're going on a date as a young man, as a young classy man does from time to time, we go on dates and we say you want their dog to like you because if the dog doesn't like you, something's wrong with you. I felt that this was kind of Dany. He wanted to make sure her pets liked him as well, and there's way more on the line because they're fucking dragons. But yeah, let's answer your question really quick. And for all you fine gentlemen out there that have been having to impress dogs, I'm with you too. After they leave the room, I tell the dog, I'm like, oh, you don't like me? I'm sorry. Well, you're a fucking dog, so you're gonna have to deal with it. But it is true. People, they're like, why doesn't my dog like you? Why doesn't my cat like you? What's wrong?
Justin,
with you?
You hate dogs and little kids. What's wrong?
I do. I don't like kids at all. So let's see. Thanks to all three of you. Thank you for today's stream. If it pops up before discussion of Arya's arc, what was she drawing for Gendry? Something to take out the dragon. Thanks again. Yeah, what she was drawing was, it looked like obsidian that could be used as like, it just had a pole arm attached to it, but very short, and looked like it would attach into another staff. It looks like she wants it to be a ranged weapon as well as a something to use up close, like a dagger. With Arya's training in the show, this makes sense. She has a pole arm. We know they beat us over the head with it with the wave. She's skilled with that, and she's skilled with up close, kind of how she gets disarmed finally when she's cutting with a thrusting weapon against Bran in that badass fight. She pulls out the dragon glass dagger, so cat's paw. So yeah, it looks like that. Gendry seems to be perplexed by this. I don't know why. It seems to be fairly simple compared to what he's constructing, but nonetheless, I would like to bring up that I definitely think my prediction of them going and having a relationship is gonna, I would say, I dare you to say it's not going to happen now with what they've foreshadowed here, that she has definitely been treated in a way that she's never, I don't want to say sexualized, but Mackenzie, do you not feel that the discussion that she had with Gendry was flirtatious, and they were implying that she's a woman now and this is acceptable now and this is going to happen, so we need to believe that now, so it's not Gendry marrying a little girl that we remember from season 1? Because she isn't. She has grown up both in the show and off the show. So am I wrong in predicting that they're definitely at least going down the route of having her have a love interest?
I feel like now, because it is not, there's that, it shows less of an obvious age gap, that they can hint and have those flirtatious scenes.
Dempsey look really old though.
I froze. I guess I froze for a second. Yeah, they can have the flirtate, because she's obviously grown up now. They can have the flirtatious scenes, but I'm going 50-50 on it. Like, I feel like either something's going to happen and it's going to completely separate, or they may push somebody else into one of those situations, or Gendry just doesn't really know exactly what she's done. If he finds out that the girl that he knew for quite a while just up and went and murdered an entire male part of a household, murdered all of these different people, who's to say if he enjoys,
he finds that to be disturbing or not? If he's like, oh, you're a serial killer, some people aren't into that.
It's that classic 80s trope, right? The young poor dude falls in love with the rich girl, and the rich girl's misunderstood, Gendry's never known a rich girl. He knows one now, you know. Oh, my lady.
Yeah,
it was a little weird.
I think most 80s movies really they take some dark roots. And in retrospect, there's a lot of rape happening that's not romantic.
It's like mini, but this is like mini Dexter or something.
How many girls in movies in the 80s get tricked into having relations with almost all of the movies are tricking girls? Yeah.
No, but the movies are about if you have sex, you get killed by the guy. You know what I mean? That's what all those 80s movies are like. It's like the kind of, it's like the Carpenter Reagan switch. Like they came about at a time when everyone was like, say no to everything.
Maybe that's the reason why Arya hasn't ever had a intimate scene before, is she doesn't want to get killed like the traditional movie trope.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that it's interesting to see, and I want to say thank you to Carrie. She's just loving to chat, another Patreon supporter, and yeah, I mean Carrie is very knowledgeable herself. And if anybody has anything that they want to put in as far as aspects that you liked about this, I do want to stay on the love for a little bit. Axel, I know you're going to defend the '80s movies. I know you made a lot of those. You were a big part of that rape culture and all that, so no big deal, no big deal.
Hey, I was born in '74, man. I was making movies when I was 10, though. I did start when I was 10 years old.
In the you know, to tackle such issues like that at 10 years old was brave.
Well, we did actually. We made a serial killer movie when I was about 15. It was actually pretty good.
Oh, that was a movie?
Yeah, yeah, it was good. My friend got to kiss this girl we thought was cute. She was
that's tricking. Oh my god, dude! I gotta go past that. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Why do you think guys start making movies, Justin? This girl's.
I know why. Just keep it.
She made the movie with us. Okay, it was all good. She had a good time too.
Yep. All right, Harvey Weinstein.
Oh my god.
What about Tyrion though? Tyrion.
Oh wait, can I say one thing about the weapon?
Yes.
Okay. I thought that it looked like some sort of maybe like Assassin's Creed thing where it like goes in her arm. It looked like it might like eject something. I don't know.
That's what I thought at first.
Yeah, like she can do a sleeve thing and kind of like the gun. You know how people do that in movies? They have the little gun comes out, but it's almost like a
Gatling. It's like
like and she can kind of shoot something.
It would make sense, but I don't. Upon the screenshot that I got, it just looks like it twists out. No, yeah, it does though. Like from what you see, meaning like the brief period. But yeah, we have a few people. Whereas Ghost, I felt a little bit disappointed for that, is because I felt like the Targaryen, you know, the mythical dragons were there for them. So you know, we should have the dire wolf there represent. You know, it's a perfect. You know, mix right there that they should have those clashes, not like fighting, but literally show that like, hey, we got magic too. Like we're special too. We got
the balance. Yeah,
that's what I'm getting at. Yeah. Really quick, Arya's weapon looks like the spear head could somehow work like a bow. I think is what this from Carrie. You should really say, yeah, that's what I thought as well. I'm with Axel on this. Just for the video I'm doing for my recap. You know, like I got unfortunately the real picture that we just see for like 2 seconds, and you know it just looks like it screws in, because I thought too like it projects out, then she could get it back, but it doesn't seem to be the case.
Logistically, I can say it's more than likely, knowing Arya, a dual-sided dual-edged bow staff that breaks down for close quarters into Cali sticks for the most part.
Damn. I'm not messing with you, Johnny.
And I can't remember what the actual name of the sticks with the blades on are called, but I'll find out.
You have halberds. But okay, so Tyrion is the character that we have grown to love, and mostly think about how prevalent romance was in his story. And now it's gone. It's gone after Shay. Now we're talking about show Tyrion, by the way. Book Tyrion has a little bit more questionable desires. But I feel though the reasoning for age, and Carrie said, be careful about age. No, I'm old. So I'm the oldest person here. So we are not having any ageism. But with Tyrion, you know, it's brought yeah, we're about all the same. We brought upon the idea of he's old now. And you know, like look at those that young couple. They're so happy. I felt Tyrion, you know, like we're missing a little bit of that from him. Do you think he's facing a midlife crisis or whatever you want to sorry, half man, half like. Okay, no, I won't make that joke. But do you feel like that romance is something that he's going to try to, bring back into his life, companionship whatsoever? It's kind of a sad story, right? This is a person that's very passionate. I mean, Show Tyrion is, a very passionate man. And so he has, again, love versus duty. He picked duty, and he picked it for people that, tried to have him killed. What do you guys think about that? Was that a narrative on his loneliness and how he has sacrificed all he loves in order to try to, again, have these people that still treat him like a monster?
We can go back to kinslaying too, right? Nothing is accursed as a kinslayer. And I think he may just end up being completely punished until the end for the murder of his father, until some kind of shining moment before he dies. I see Tyrion dying more and more now, especially when they seemingly are limiting his role. And to Axel's point, he is a maiden, even though, he says he's the oldest person here, but you're a maiden, sir. That's the problem with Tyrion. I don't think he's going to even has the opportunity to find love in that manner. The best thing for him is to find family, and this reunion with Jaime, I think, is going to be the sweetest thing we see from Tyrion.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
That's a great point right there, because he wants to and another reason why he could have made some type of
we're losing you, buddy.
It's just everybody is. I really like that they have addressed that Tyrion is acting like an idiot when he's supposed to be the smartest man. They're not having him just act, play him like a fool for this and just get that so they can have the conflict with it. It leads me to believe that there is something at hand here, because, it's not the typical like D&D dumbing down Littlefinger in order to get him killed. It seems like it's part of a larger, backdoor deal at hand. Is there any validity to that, or you think he's just literally losing it in his old age?
I would have to say, as far as Tyrion and love, what do you mean by losing it in his old age? Like he's kind of losing his grasp on what's happening in this situation?
Well, he seems to have, right? They're calling him on it directly. They're saying, why would you believe that? Sansa's like laughing at him. She's disgusted that this is what
I think that this again is a lesson. I mean, Tyrion's made mistakes before. You know what I'm saying? Like in Marine, they made some mistakes, and he's not always made the right choices, and he doesn't always see the situation as it is. And the reason why Tyrion has been smart is because in the past, he's been able to know when he doesn't know something. So in this situation, it just might be, I didn't get a chance to say much about Sansa, but I think she's finding herself here. I mean, you have to think that she didn't even really have the ability to think for herself and act for herself until after they defeated Ramsay.
You don't have to tell Sansa to me. I am.
So I mean, I think that she's finding herself. She's finding her power. She's finding her agency. She's a little too tough sometimes, but she, who she reminds me of is, I was going to call her Stanza, because she's kind of like, she's almost like, she's like Stannis. I think she's kind of like very like, this is how we do things.
Kind of pragmatic.
She's pragmatic, exactly. And I think that's what we're discovering about her, because we as an audience on the show even has not had an opportunity to really learn who she is, because she's been handed from this person to that person, and she's always had to react to these insane situations. And now she's in a situation where she can use her mind, she can see what's happening, she can talk to people. And as far as romance goes, I'm going with my friend Ken. I think that Tyrion and Sansa are going to get back together, because I think that they have chemistry. And if that's the one I felt the most chemistry with between Tyrion and Sansa, I think they'd make a great couple.
The sequence of scenes speaks to that from a structure standpoint. I don't feel the on-screen chemistry, but I agree with you in the sense of the relationship discussion was in sequence with that. But my point is,
I like it.
Is smart. Sansa is the best, as far as I'm concerned, and that's not me being, like a dry sense of humor. I'm not being ironic. I believe that. But Tyrion doesn't get dumber because she gets smarter. So what's the point? Is it just egg on my face? What is the point of having this agreement with Cersei that Tyrion made it for the story? Because what we have to look at is technically we have an agreement made on screen, but that's not the whole meeting. We do have they deliberately not shown us a part of that conversation, and now he's just egg on my face. What does that do?
I would say, Justin, that it's just an example of Tyrion, like everybody else. Maybe he did want to trust his situation. I think he made a mistake, and I think that he has to learn from it. And like everybody, every character has to learn. You don't always have the right answer. Talk to other people, get other information. Trust other people. But he made a mistake. I think he made a mistake.
I think that would be the wrong time for this, but they've proven that they've done silly things in the past. I just think that right now this seems to be a pretty significant situation that they're dealing with him. This isn't just okay, now I'm going to utilize this essentially to overcome the conflict in the future. This seems to me like some backdoor dealing. Speaking about backdoor dealing, Euron Greyjoy. Euron Greyjoy is back in King's Landing with the Golden Company. And we see that he is kept like Yara alive because he's simply an evil man. He's like Dr. Evil with laser sharks and so forth. And he is back there, and he's back there because he ran on a policy of I'm going to fuck the queen, and he is definitely going to fuck the queen. What did you guys think about this? We got, we got Harry Strickland from the books that, I made sure to check the captions before they even called him Harry. I was impressed with that. It doesn't resemble him whatsoever, but it is what it is. What do you think about the Golden Company and King's Landing? Because we do have a ploy going on there as well with Bran, a sneak little situation. Mackenzie, I will go to you first, and Johnny, what did you think about King's Landing?
Well, first when Cersei, when Qyburn's like, they breached the wall, she's like, okay, thanks for telling me. But yeah, when she meets with Euron, or when she's about to meet with Euron, and Euron's having the conversation with Yara, and he's like, you're the only person I get to talk to. And I thought my immediate reaction was, I think Harry Strickland can talk to you too, because he got two people to talk to, not just Yara. Because everybody else has been muted because...
Here's a bag of personality, Harry Strickland.
He gets to talk for 5 seconds, and that's about it. But yeah, when they show up in the throne room, a lot of people were trying to figure out who it was, but most of us were correct in saying that it was Strickland and Euron. They cast Strickland to look like a cheap man's Jamie season 1, almost, with the look of this, with the blonde hair and the swoosh kind of look.
Yeah, he plays Ragnar in the Last Kingdom. But yeah, they cleaned him up quite a bit. He is spiffy.
That's Ragnar? Wow, I didn't even recognize him, man. And Harry Strickland's supposed to be Harry the Homeless is his nickname, I believe. Yeah. And they just had him dressed to the nines, young.
But they gave him the name. Dude. But they gave him the name. But the name is there. Just the name is there. Be quiet. It's fine.
Do you
it's the same person? Okay. The name. Again, they knew the name. Okay, so let's think.
With the Jamie, though. Oh, sorry.
Cersei hears that they have broken the wall and they're through. She says, good. And she's looking upon her fleet that's coming to her. So that leads us to believe that, her plan is to obviously take advantage. Do we think that she is going to take advantage in a way of just wait to see how many die? Or do you think she's going to actually try to interfere with their battle against the whites and so forth? Because it seems like this is all going according to plan for her so far.
Around this time, though, it's when Qyburn goes and meets with Bronn, and he's like, go kill her. Here's a crossbow, and go kill her brothers, and you'll be rewarded for your good deeds. And I guess so it's just maybe, they are like the weirdest evil couple is that comes to be because of that whole thing of, well, they can't swim, so now it'll be almost like a competition. Who can get to the Iron Islands first? If all goes to hell with that, because of what they talk about with Yara and Theon. But I guess there's something that's going on, but the thing too is when they were talking about the army and how much is involved, it's the elephants. Yeah, we don't have the budget for elephants. We barely have the budget for a character that's been in the show since season 1, episode 1. That needs CGI. So
I thought that was really funny because Cersei doesn't seem like the one to like want like elephant, you know, like obviously like to kill, but like she doesn't like. It seems like it was kind of cute. I'll just be a fanboy here. Like it was kind of cute. Like it doesn't really like at all like add up, and it's not really in sync with her character. It doesn't seem like she's like, oh, I just really want it. It was kind of just silly, but it was a little bit funny. Speaking of what you say, they just seem to be evil for the sake of evil. Even Strickland does kind of bow his head when they're talking about the guys that died on the way over, and Euron's like, they were cheating at dice, so maybe I was cheating. Oh, they weren't good fighters anyways. It's like, wow, you could not have a worse team of people together because they just are not trying to, be productive whatsoever. So, do you think that Cersei is really ordering Bran, or it's just because they can't be in scenes together? Cersei, Hina Lenley, and what's his name cannot be in the same. Yeah,
you can actually make it where they actually are in the same scene.
Yes.
They just aren't in the same thing. Like they could have done that where she actually talks to him, but
sat
not
on the throne and just said it. Yep, and
then reversal thing. But because if they had done that, that would have been a big shock and awe moment. That would probably have been the best scene of the entire episode, almost, is if they were actually in a scene together. But
I think it's purposeful, though. I think Qyburn's taken the liberty of doing this on his own and raising his standard and keeping his place in the world. He deliberately told Bran that he's never been appreciated more. He's never had access to more bodies as well. And I think it's deliberate. We didn't see Cersei involved in this at all. I don't think she wants Jaime dead, or she would have had the Mountain kill him. I could see her going after Tyrion, but why Jaime now? Is she in love with Euron? I don't see that. I think Qyburn's taking this upon himself. And when she finds out Jaime either dies or think Jaime's dead, I think
he died as Hair Black.
I think Jaime's golden hand will get sent to King's Landing. This is going to send Cersei into a mental spiral because she's already trying to fight this prophecy. And I think she's either had a miscarriage or not. She can't get pregnant at all and just been lying. There's some trying to decipher what's going on with Cersei, but she doesn't seem that concerned, right? Like she's already given up. She has this plan, and then she's going to kill herself is what I think is going to happen.
That is my prediction, that she is going to set the Golden Company. Axel, we're going to come to you in one moment. My thing is, I think that Qyburn, there's a semblance of that, but also we get a lot of people stating why they follow who they follow. So, because right now it's kind of hard to believe anybody would be following them, but like that kind of clears it up. I'm not even trying to be like silly about it. It's just, sometimes people are just like, what the fuck is anybody doing? Especially with Euron, who is following this guy? So having things like that injected into your story, about him talking about the wealth he's gained does kind of clear up his motivation for it, but again, I think it'd be really cool to see what you're talking about. It really kind of muddies the water because of the contract situation. But like Mackenzie said, especially with Cersei, since she sits on a throne, that would be really easy to do. Nobody's ever standing, like they're always standing like really far away from her. So and we'll get into some silly camera work in cinematography in a little bit. Axel, you had something you wanted to bring up about King's Landing. How did you feel about it?
Well, man, I feel like Cersei, when you're talking about Cersei, I like what Johnny said, because I have predicted that Cersei was going to die in every season, and I've been wrong. And I have to be right some season, so I'm going to predict that she dies again this season. So I think that she's just going to blow everything up, man. I think she's laughing because I think that the wildfire is once, twice, 3 times all of King's Landing. Because when Tyrion first talks about it, he says, and they talk about the Mad King, it's everywhere. It's in the whole city. It's not just, they mention the Sept of Baelor, but they also mention underneath the houses. It was everywhere. So I think she has some kind of crazy plan to lure the White Walkers into King's Landing and basically just take it all out. And I don't know, it's just, I think it might be fun to see it too, like an actual image of the entire city, like just the whole thing explodes. Because in a sense, is there no more metaphor for breaking the wheel or starting over than the entire capital goes up in smoke, which wasn't, from listening to Fire and Blood, that was built there to start this ruling of uniting the lands under one king, right?
The Aegon keep and all that. It was a humble,
that's how it's got to end, man. Just the whole thing explodes. But it might not happen. But I like what he was saying, because I think it ties into her. Like they say the wall has, the wall has
nobody thinks it.
And she laughs. She's like, ah, ha, ha, good.
Well, I like everything about that except for like the idea that she's even like worried about the White Walkers. I think that she is going to literally just accept, and that could be it. That would be her having some redemption, I guess. But she would still be killing 2 million people. The thing I think is that I'm in agreement. I've said this before. I think that she will turn the Golden Company on the city. And, just like her father turned, the armies on the city. And I think that they won't break their contract because that's what she asked them to do. And that, she seems to be perfectly content with, burning the world to the ground before anybody else can get their hands on the throne. So if they want it, here you go.
Can I say, if Jaime is alive and this happens, if he's alive, it plays into a story of if I had only stayed. So the opposite action, he can never get it right. He kills the Mad King, everybody hates him. He leaves and goes away from her because of how mad she is, everybody hates him. The guy just can't do it right when it comes to Mad Kings and Queens.
I feel like she's going to die right before he gets to her to try to sneak her out of King's Landing. Like she'll poison herself.
Yeah, that I was thinking Tyrion is going to be the one that tries to do that.
Or Tyrion, Justin said, we were talking about that yesterday.
That'd be fun.
Well, okay. As far as Bran's whole situation goes, to just get out of King's Landing, because I think that's kind of what's happening anyways in the story, is that essentially, number one, he's really happy Qyburn knocked on the door when he told him to, because he's way not I was going to say too old, but somebody said not to do it. But way too old to satisfy that many. There was like 5 women in there with him. Like, what was he planning on doing? He's an ambitious man. But yeah, so he's like, did you knock? Good. So he couldn't, podrick all of those women. And he was able to give him this opportunity. I guess if I was going to smoke out a rat, because Cersei would have to wonder what he's still doing there. His allegiance was to the brothers, not her. She took stuff away. I guess really it's like not any way for her to lose if he does go take the oddly sentimental crossbow that's not practical at all for him to use and kill them, for some poetic justice. If he does it, he does it. If he leaves, it shows and comes back, then it shows like his actual allegiance. And if not, he leaves. Like I would want him out of the city anyways, because I wouldn't know why he was still there, to be honest.
I'm going to elaborate on this in the video, but I want to throw this to y'all. Bran has the crossbow. He's talking about, but he doesn't want to hear Dany. He has clearly some PTSD. He sees the danger of Dany. Jorah, back early in their season, shout out to one of my people in the chat earlier. He said that one well-placed crossbow bolt can kill a queen.
Sinful soul.
And I think we're going to maybe see that. I think Bran may try to assassinate Dany, because I feel like we're going to get an assassination attempt on Dany, and it might even be to where Dany thinks this is a northerner that tried to assassinate her. If she doesn't get assassinated.
Axel is going to be on at 10, and we're going to try to get that link. They're getting it set up right now, but he is doing a whole new format for the podcast Winterfell, and there's more information on that coming. That being said, I know you do have a wife of your own, because you are a good man and you need to go get some dinner. So he will be leaving us. Thank you for joining us, Axel.
Oh, thank you for having me. And it was great being on with all 3 of you.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure you will be on again, and we will be doing this after every episode. And get me those links. So we will try to get those out to you guys. Thanks for coming on. As far as Johnny, were you in the middle of something? Did I just interrupt?
Oh no, I was kind of throwing it to y'all. What do you think about Bran possibly trying to assassinate Dany?
If it gives him bonus points, sure. right?
He
Like,
seems really scared of her and the dragons, though. Like that's a threat. Maybe killing her. He thinks he could end this burning people alive business. Because there
But-
was a big deal with that in the brothel. I don't know.
but do we know how good Bran is with a crossbow?
You just point and shoot.
Assuming he's adequate enough. I guess the
Better
question
than
is,
Joffrey.
you know, what he Joffrey killed all of his women. He was good. They whatever, he hunts what he hunts. He's a bad guy. As far as Bran, we do see that, you know, he's trying to live off of his legacy from the you know, the loot train. So it is brought up. They keep talking about other people. So he's not part of the action anymore. Maybe the lack of attention from prostitutes will drive him towards glory in order to satisfy all the prostitutes he can. But yeah, I think that it's, you know, it's just King's Landing is dormant right now. We know that they're there. We know that Cersei has no intention on helping. It's just how harmful does she try to be? Does she inject into the actual situation and try to do something? It seems like you just don't bring the Golden Company just to have in case people make it out of this. It seems like you would want to send them and have them do something. But yeah, I guess that's, you know, we'll leave there because we got bigger fish to fry, just like, you know, because we're going to go back north. And I do want to talk about what we see as far as the semblance of the Night's Watch that is left, what we could see, because please light your scenes, D&D. Please light your scenes. I cannot see anything.
It matter.
Yeah, it's the lack of light in this series is just crazy. But anyways, so they are searching around, and we're going to go back to Bran and everything that's happened in the meantime. But I just want to cover all the parties here. You know, there is a Night's Watch, technically, or a group of people walking around right now. And are they around the wall? Where are they exactly at this moment?
They're in Last Hearth.
What's that?
They go to Last Hearth. That's where they meet with Tormund.
Yes, Ned Umber's castle. That's where.
Okay,
they
so they're at the
sent
Last
him in
Hearth.
beginning.
Yeah, that's
In the
where they
scene.
meet.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they're just going around from village to I wasn't sure if they were just going around the wall or not. So they just met up there. So you have your two parties that run into each other, or they're just going around and they are looking for survivors, I'm assuming. And we do see Ned Umber up on some ornate symbol, you know, that are made from the Night King. We have the same like cyclic sigil that we've been seeing since the first episode, and we see that, you know, the Children of the Forest use that as well. What do you guys think about this message? What is the Night King doing? Why is he being so like he's doing things that don't tell me he wants absolute destruction? He's doing things to antagonize them. He's goading them, right? Like, this isn't the action of like a monster that's just trying to crush everything. He's a monster that seems to have some other cynical plan that's a little bit more nuanced, right?
Oh, there's so many meanings. I see a couple meanings here. You had emphasis on the Karstark sigil, which is the sun. Tyrion noted one of the better sigils. It looks the same as the symbol. Another spiral symbol is a portal to another world as well. You got the weir realm that Bran was touched in, but I feel like it's almost a map. They're going to Carhold next. I'm guaranteeing you that's the next spot, and that's the sigil matches up as well. Then you have that same symbol at where the Night King was first made by the Children of the Forest. It's like a little Stonehenge around a weirwood that's split now. We've seen it a couple of times in the series, and in the first episode we see the same symbol. It's on the ground and the little girl's hung up in the tree. I think it's
that one is slightly different. I didn't want to talk to you about that really quick. I'm sorry.
The line,
it's the line going into the circle.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's reoccurring as well, but it is worth noting that it is slightly different. So
yeah, there are two of them that there might be more than two, but I know there's two. The one with the line in it is, if I'm not mistaken, it's infinity symbol, like a never-ending loop type thing.
That seems to be the direction they're
it's
going.
Obscure, right?
Yeah, you see, you know, the spiral. That's like, I am not at all very well read, and like you can look into how geometry like can explain the universe, and people, you know, there's a lot of different ideas about this, but it's cyclic. You know, all these circular things, like everything is a loop, everything is like one working mechanism type idea. In the opening, the new and old, you notice how everything everything spirals up as well. It's a spiraling. It's like a flower. Watch a flower growing in high def in in 4K in slow motion. It spirals up, and it looks exactly like that symbol that we see for the circular symbol. So I think it's just, this is all part of the universe, this reoccurring, just life and death and rebirth and so forth.
There will be no end to the long night. This makes me think of what you said. Like, there's going to have to be either like a replacement of the Night King, so to speak. I don't know if I like that, but I think it can be pulled off in a sense. But it's going to have to take something spectacular to break this magical loop. And they haven't set it up to where they can kill all magic, I don't think. You would have to do so much stuff around this world to kill all magic. So to me, seeing the cave painting that John showed Danny, assuming he didn't draw it with a crayon like you say, Justin, there was a different Night King before with a beard and shit.
Yeah.
Assuming that another one took his place. So Leaf is only about 200 years old, so she didn't create the first Night King.
Yeah, that timeline is so off.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm throwing generalities, so don't take me.
No. I agree with you. Leaf
yeah.
could not have created the first Night. Even the one that they say she created in the show is way off. Is the issue with that? But it's not beyond them to mess that up. Yeah, a lot of people talking about it's like, its circle has changed. It's that whole idea. I try not to speak out of turn as far as like what I've actually studied. This is not one of those things, but it's just general idea of everything's working together, and it is these parameters that we work within, and like even the magic, like Johnny's talking about, is like it's all part of it's like just another cog in the machine. But there's people that can break that down a lot better than this channel. I will more so talk about the story, but yeah, I mean it's very much so akin to just creation, and again, that this continuous loop. Mackenzie, do you have any feelings about this other than just it's the symbolism for again this world and this vicious cycle that can either be broken or is going to stay the same no matter what?
Some people I've seen online try to equate the that specific one, because it was on fire, to be like an inverse version of like the Targaryen sigil, which I'm like, not so much. And like alluding to the fact that maybe the Night King is like half Targaryen or something like that, because it's such a heavy prevalence in this episode. But I think it's more symbolic than just a Targaryen, honestly. I think it's what we're kind of alluding to, of it being something more overarching than just, hey, I'm also a Targaryen kind of thing. Yeah,
because one of the Targaryens, there's the similarities. I love that point, because the similarity, why would it be based off the Targaryens based it off that? You know what I mean? Like, this is far before the Targaryens. It's far before anything. This is like something that is just this is the universe, the part of this unexplained, this other, it's much, much bigger than that. It's it seems weird to be like, yeah, well, we took and adapted our sigil. It's like, okay. Weird.
It's like adapting each other's sigil. It's like, even though it's the same, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the fact that Ned Umber had to go back, we talked about this earlier. It's like, why don't you send both Alice and Ned at the same time and go, like, instead of sending Alice first and then have her come back, and then you said Ned and then he doesn't come back. It's like,
it's interesting because they're low on resources, and they are trying to consolidate the power of the North. Does anybody in the chat agree that it might be like they're feeding the machine, feeding the beast in a way? I mean, let's look at what happened with the dragons. They were, it seems like they were goaded to do this. And again, the Night King is toying with them. It seems like maybe Cersei deciding to stay in the capital. And again, not to be like an armchair general here, but it's like she never was going to agree with you guys in the first place. Why don't we just go ahead and say, why don't you just try to keep yourself women link? Because it seems like when you attack with the largest amount of force, it goes in the worst possible way. So I think it's, I guess it's the only thing they can do. They have to have a plan, but at the same point, it doesn't seem like they're doing exactly what he wants, right? He's waiting. He's not rushing.
No, because we're gonna see Beric and Tormund make it there before he does. We know from the previews. Let's go find some horses. So he's playing a game right here. He's playing chess. He's putting every piece in motion. I don't think we heard that there's 1 million people in King's Landing for the Night King's army for no reason. And the Night King definitely could see through that White's eyes that they brought into the dragon pit. This mofo is smart and is definitely connected through Bran. I think after he touched Bran, he can see through Bran's eyes now. That's how he was able to find Brynden Rivers and get to the Weirwood to kill them so quickly. That's the only way it makes sense to me. He has to be able to see through Bran's eyes and playing Bran as a pawn. If Bran isn't the Night King, which I don't like that, so I hope that doesn't happen. But I do think he's using Bran as a pawn. I don't think Bran necessarily knows it yet, but there will be a point of realization, and Jaime's going to have to kill Bran or something to stop this connection with the Night King. It's not going to kill the Night King to kill Bran, but it's going to give him a better chance, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's interesting because we have to deal with the fact of, just because his magic is stronger, that lets the dragons be stronger. It's, it's equal. It rises equally. So it's like, the tools that they're using to kill him are the same tools that are making him powerful. So, trying to fight the occult with the occult is, is kind of just a moot point. I do agree, and we do have a line of dialogue here that I thought people were going to be freaking out about. Bran says, "I'm waiting for an old friend." Now, this is where it comes to, it's like a psychoanalyst, but how much of Bran is still Bran? It seems to be very, very little. I was of the mind of there's nothing, literally, like not him whatsoever. But there does seem to be a semblance of him. He made sure he's very cold. He's very cold with Sansa, of course, because I guess just fuck you, Sansa, at every point with the show. I'm talking about from their point of view. But, and then telling Dany about the dragons, which, yeah, it seemed like she should have been a little bit more upset, not let's go ride the dragons now. But it's, interesting that he chose to wait to tell Jon about his parentage. Like, it seemed like, it's like, this isn't the right time. And when he describes that, he says, my dad isn't his dad. My mom isn't his mom. That's either sloppy writing or, that's a connection. That is a string that seems to be still attached to Bran. Because when he says my old friend, my first thought is, oh, everybody's going to say that, because technically he can time travel. So he could be in the future right now, or in the past right now, coming from the future. So you don't know what you're seeing, what sequence of events you're seeing this in. Have fun with that idea in your head. You can never be sure now. Just understand that at any point in time, you could see what essentially would be a cut scene to cut back, and go back into it is a mess when you put time travel in the story. Just realize that anything could be changed and anything could happen. And what we're seeing right now could just be some like reworking of something. So why is Jaime is the old friend Jaime? And even if he's not, and we'll never know unless he says that's what he meant by that, but I have to believe that he thinks that Jaime coming there is very important. So why is that? Is that because Jaime is the one that made the three-eyed crow, the new three-eyed crow? Or maybe not, because he maybe already did the switch. Again, have fun with that idea. That he was pushed out the window by Jaime. So like he's like, again, like when I talk about a cog in the machine, like he's like a variable in this that could be changed. If that event doesn't happen, Bran doesn't become blah, 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 but then you could like go back and put a sheepskin on Ned and make sure he doesn't come. I mean, it turns into a mess, but again, they've injected this into the story. Johnny first and Mackenzie, what is the importance of this? Is this worth me making, a stupid who is his old friend video? People will make them anyways, but are we seeing some significance in Jaime other than that's the asshole that pushed out Bran from the window? Because I thought Bran was gone. No, where's Bran?
Jaime is the key to this, and I think Bran is mostly gone. And when you talk about maybe we're seeing in the past and Bran's messing with something, it makes me think, how the hell was Gendry able to make all of those weapons before anybody could even meet one another? If they seemingly came there at the same time, and Bran is sitting out in the open, and this isn't the only time he's sitting out in the open. He's pretty much doing this the whole time, and it reminds me of when he's in the dream with Hodor, just watching what's unfolding. Hodor could see him at that moment. Maybe he's just moving himself to a certain place. That kind of blows my mind. But with Jaime, he is maybe the friend. And I will just go with that for now. He's the reason for Bran's journey. And I think Bran is an amalgamation of every three-eyed crow that's ever lived. And maybe we'll see that there's one personality that all the three-eyed crows have. Because Brendan Rivers didn't even necessarily act like Brendan Rivers. Yeah, it's hard to say. Mackenzie, what do you think Jamie's end role?
Can I throw one thing in for you to work with, Mackenzie? The idea that Bran and the Three-Eyed Crow would know this too. Bran 3000 manipulated the Mad King, so Jamie killed the Mad King. That affected Jamie, perversely. So that is then, the big deal with him, because he seems to be rather shocked. I mean, this is the most emotion I've seen on him. I think he blinked when he saw Jamie. So I was like, whoa, he is pissed. But yeah, is it something to do with that? Jamie seems to have some connection. It seems to be something we don't know.
I think for people who aren't analyzing it like we are, we're supposed to think that it's Jamie that's the old friend that he's looking for, or he's wanting to see, because a lot of us didn't expect Jamie to show up this episode until obviously Bran says, I'm waiting here to see my old friend. This obviously has more inflection than Bran did, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the Night King in the end, and it's because Bran has obviously switched minds or whatever as time has went on. But yeah, I think it's overtly supposed to be Jamie, but underlying will probably be the Night King in the end. And that's who we're supposed to actually be looking for. Plus, Bran didn't move the entire episode. He sat in the courtyard.
Yeah, he was comfortable.
They need to make Winterfell wheelchair accessible, I guess.
If that's a real GoFundMe, I saw those numbers. Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. It runs into the time travel paradox, but it is what it is. I do like the idea that, Jamie is got redemption coming in a way other than, like, oh, well, I made the Mad King do that. Like, I don't like this, that, like, it's just too, it ruins a lot of the subtle nuances we have if you're that, if you have it be that impactful that nothing matters anymore, meaning like that we find out some revelation that means that like nobody's responsible for their actions. That's not really the way this story works. It's the complete opposite. So I would like to think that it's not him in some time loop, but also he did like seem like he was rushing it. He's like, we don't have time for this. Maybe it's like, this is the third time I went back to try to fix this and I got to watch this damn argument again.
What about Beric being an old friend and maybe Bran having something to do with Beric's resurrection in a mind-blowing way? Because I feel like he's definitely connected with the Red Gods somehow. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think all those powers are one and the same. But that's my tinfoil on it.
Yeah, I think that Beric's whole point is to be pointless in the sense of there's no rhyme or reason. I truly believe this, that the best analogy that you can get or best example of why prophecy happens or why they think these people are not why prophecy, why they think that these people are resurrected and stuff like this happens is, Beric. There's no rhyme or reason. He's there and he's impacting it, but he is not like this chosen one. He has been resurrected more than anybody. He might end up meaning nothing. There is not going to be, you don't explain magic, it becomes science. It's not the case. I think that Beric's existence is to showcase just how fucking just indifferent this power is. It's just like the universe is indifferent. It's just doing what it does.
It's more than likely Jamie. And I think it's simple. If we just think about it simplistic, Jamie will end it because he began it. Mm-hmm. And you can take with that what you will, but I think Jamie will be needed to end this. Mm-hmm. Jon won't be able to kill Bran. I don't even think Arya will be able to do it, but Jamie would do it to save humanity. Jamie,
the things we do for love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was almost kind of waiting for that to happen and like him just go things like at whisper level that we would hear it though. It's like the things we do for love or something like that. Yeah.
So you think he'll kill Mackenzie? You think that Jamie will kill the Night King? That he has that is his role to play?
No, it's probably there'll be a thing of if Bran has to warg, say, like the Night King or something, and there's that battle in the mind of almost that thing of someone's gonna have to watch Bran. Someone besides like a person who just sits and watches. Like we're gonna need someone to fight kind of for Bran, and if in the end it has to be Jaime, that's his punishment, quote unquote. No, we're skipping ahead to the next episode in the fact, but yeah, that could be his sort of punishment. Now you have to watch Bran and sit there and do crossword puzzles while everybody else goes out and fights.
He could also warg Jaime, because one day he was going to be a knight, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll grow up to be a knight. Maybe he wargs Jaime. Maybe it was Bran left-handed. That would work out. If Bran
He
was
needs to
left-handed,
warg someone with 2 hands.
Yeah, I know, bad. I'm saying, yeah, poor choice. Hopefully, if he was left-handed, though, that's the big turn. He's like, the Night King's all happy. He's like, I didn't tell you, I'm left-handed. He's like, what? And it blows his mind. And and it's all about. It's just a big, real. Just the message is you should try to be left-handed, as much as possible. So yeah, I think that what this episode did is it does what all pilot episodes do and all first episodes of seasons do. It establishes where we're at, and where we're at is a whole bunch of people trying to get their shit together. What they're dealing with is a leadership that is trying their best to do the right thing, but their idea of where power derives from is not in sync either. John, it is presented to us with John's before his revelation that Sam was speaking out of angst. And he was quite angry. I thought it took away from the scene, to be honest, but it was an interesting choice. He was presented with this information, and this makes him second guess things. But also, the beginning of Sam's conversation is, "You've always been the king." I kind of take that you've always been like a good leader. You've always been this, and I think it solves problems for him to find this out, and is also problematic in the sense of how because Danny isn't just like using birthright and saying, "Oh, that's like a nice catch, so now I can say that's my reasoning." Danny truly believes in birthright, in my opinion. Like, it's not. I think we have this like jaded sense because it's not a great idea to rule through blood right. That she's just like found a rule. You know what I mean? And she's like, pick that. She's like, okay, that's my claim. No, like people, this is her belief system. It's just as strong as it's just as silly and just as strong as the red guy.
Viserys ingrained that in her head since she was a child.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we shouldn't dismiss it. So we shouldn't dismiss the idea that Danny isn't going to feel honor bound to submit or see him as a threat. It's not a silly thing to her, It's not just something, like I said, that's like getting her by. It's not her trick that she's got that she's been holding back. She's like, well, this is my, you know what I mean? Like, it's like Johnny said, it's ingrained in her head. It's just like cemented in. So it's a big deal, to find out that you are not the true claim to that throne, especially when that's what's been driving her.
Or the last one in general. That there's
the buck doesn't end with her.
Yeah. That it just, I don't. Daenerys in this situation is just gonna be a powder, maybe a powder keg for an episode, and her have this ammo, because if someone doesn't like her or someone is against her at any moment, she's become a switch this season. It's like, oh, you don't like me? Okay, I'm going to prepare for this to happen, and this to happen, and whichever option you get is the one you're dealt. Pretty much. Like,
she's ramped it up, right? There were times in the past she's respected the culture, or at least tried to understand it. She's wanted to implement. What happened? What'd you call me, Justin? No, I'm just kidding. But she's wanted to implement at least some sense of fairness. But it feels somewhat out of character for me when I saw her this first episode. Yeah, she's been entitled up until this point, but she's never been so brazen about it, and so just blasé. And I definitely expect this. And why aren't you groveling to me?
To speak to what Johnny's freezing up, I think what Johnny's speaking to is she feels entitled, and she is not accepting of their denial of her services. But let's think, Dany the whole time has been scratching tooth and nail to get here. She gets the Westeros. It's a total lemon. It's a total shit pile. and she has to save it. And she's sacrificing taking the capital for that. So it's not like she just got here and I don't think it's unreasonable to see her, like, you know, her disdain by this, because it's like she has given up everything to show that she doesn't want to be Queen of the Ashes. I'm not saying that like her philosophy or on rule is completely sound. I'm just saying there's enough there for me to get behind it, at least. I mean, like, she has made the sacrifice already by being there. So it's only human for her to just be like, why are you now groveling over this? But again, you know, not everybody got to see the series or read the books that are there in this story. So, you know, they don't know everything she's been through and stuff like that. Again, you know, she has to continuously sell herself to the people, but that's the people you want to rule over, you know?
She's not helping herself though, right? She's not.
No.
But it's difficult. That's the thing with ruling, and every good decision she's made has gotten thrown in her face every time she's tried to be nice. I mean, to your point, she has gotten bit for it, but this is the one time she actually needs to take a little more delicate approach. I wouldn't say a completely delicate approach, but a little more understandable approach, that when you go there, the people aren't going to accept you. Roll with the punches. Don't get so offended by a jape or someone making a small comment, because Sansa's just speaking the truth. When we don't have enough food, and they don't have enough food for the normal people there, much less the army that Dany and Jon brought. So it's just a powder keg. So I can't say I blame Dany, but I think she ramped it up just a little bit.
Yeah, like they probably had just enough goats that were at the right age, and sheep, and then Dany and her dragon show up, and it's like, how many can you spare? It's like, this much. And then Dany, this is not enough. It's like, they're not eating enough. It's like, they barely eat. Like, if anything, it's when they've ever shown them eat anything, it's like one goat. Or like they burn an entire field of goats, but they just take one. It's, I don't know. And yeah, Sansa's being brushed up against because she's like, it's two alpha females trying to butt heads pretty much, and they got Jon stuck in the middle. And even though Jon's kind of leaning towards Dany right now and being like, oh, it's okay, they don't really like you, she didn't really like me when we were young. It's like trying to explain that, but also try to like pet Dany's feelings, but then also like make sure he keeps his family intact, and not mix the two or clash them in a certain situation that leads to utter chaos.
Yeah, but what's more chaotic? They need the army, of course. The logistics, that's an issue. But I really think that Sansa should know better than this. But the issue is Sansa's right, but that's the wrong time for her to be. Don't be right in front of the people. You're just causing more unrest. She should not have made that comment publicly. That should have been behind closed doors, where they need to deal with feeding people. But she's screaming it out. And I love Sansa. I think that she's the one that should have. I think that this doesn't sync up, but it is the character we're given in the show. So Sansa is just, you know, I feel it's a foolish way to do it. I mean, unless she is like, you know, biding her time and trying to make a bid for the claim herself, you know, she is publicly making them look bad. And that doesn't help, because now the people that you're trying to feed, that you're trying so hard to bring together, now you're taking and shitting on like that situation, because you're just making them just go up and have every single issue with these people that have come there to save them. They need them there. They need to deal with it. It's just like the whole idea of informing the population that there's like an asteroid or something that might hit, or some catastrophic, you know what I mean? It's not really advantageous. There's
also too the fact that there is no notice that Daenerys burnt all the food in the southern part of the country or planet of, and the fact that she willingly did that, or have Drogon willingly burn a lot of food when they're at such a low shortage of food, may make them a bit angry. So it's like you wasted food for no reason, even though it was around your enemy. There could be that thing brought up, because clearly the ravens don't fly fast enough from south to the north.
That's a good point. They don't know about that, all that food being burnt yet. When she could have just killed the army and took the food, I think they're gonna be pissed about that. That's a good point.
It's both short, but that look at who was taking that food. That they like Cersei essentially robs the Reach. Not essentially, just she's robbing the Reach. They know they can't keep it, so they rob the Reach in order to go and buy a sellsword company. So it's like just jumping to the conclusion that you're fucked anyways and the people won't follow you. Cersei is at the point in her rule where she has to buy military. So that means that she is fucked because she doesn't have the support of the people. They rob the breadbasket of this nation in order to go and feed the sellsword company that's just going to keep the knife off of your throat. Is essentially what happens. So it's this short-term thinking, and that's the same thing. Dany gets frustrated because Euron Greyjoy sailed across the world and screwed him at Castle Rock. So she's upset about it. So she makes a fleeting, moment that's driven from emotion that Jon warns her against. So yeah, like she fucked up there. It's that type of action, though. But the point is, what good does it do to bring it up in this, in this public meeting? It's not
discourse.
Yeah, that is not, that is essentially, it reminds me of like just a campaign. It's like, well, this person's fucking your taxes, you know what I mean? So it's interesting that the Vale, that Royce is just with her the whole time, and the Vale is seemingly the North now. That is also interesting to me. That is a problem you run into when you start establishing like the vast differences between these peoples. And it has a lot to do with the different climates, like the North is just so much different than the rest of the continent. So it's like they're fundamentally different in every sense of it. It's like they're not the same culture. You have all these different, climate zones and terrains where they have different resources and they have different values because they have to survive using different methods. So you have a very diverse continent. You have Africa. It's too tall. It's actually, it's that there's like 13 to 14 different climate regions in Africa alone. It causes a lot of strife, internal strife. So, we have to understand that the Dothraki coming up there are probably just as frightening as the White Walkers in a sense, especially with their culture as well, who are a raiding, pillaging, raping culture. So it's interesting, and it's the idea that they called the wildlings savages before, right? They put up the wall, and then they wanted to see on the other side. It's where the whole name comes from.
Yeah, the whole thing with the food and having to feed extra people, it's a real issue because everybody else is like, we got to deal with the dragon glass, so we got to deal with everything else, and it's just trying to ground us back into a sort of what we would be able to conceptualize as a real problem.
We're seeing real problems take place in a world that's being overrun by magical, conflict that is, spiraling out of control because of like magical, I don't know, just these occult aspects that they can't explain. But the issues are still very real, of like nationalism, xenophobia, and so forth. So I think what this episode did set up really well was just the internal struggle, and it's not a united front, and that nobody wants to see conquerors essentially come and save them because they're being saved by a foreign military. So I wish we would have seen a little bit more Stark symbolism with the direwolves, but I know it's expensive. But it would have been nice to see that magical aspect of that culture as well. But for the most part, I just felt like this episode was par for the course. Hopefully it will get better. It did set up what we needed to know. Again, I feel they're heavy-handed with the way they give us some of this information, and it could have been more impactful. Yara was just saved. They could have made a bigger deal out of that. They could have gave us a little bit more anticipation. Maybe put it in a situation where we see that Theon might fail for a moment, right? Like, I just feel like those opportunities are thrown out the window. Like, it's like, come on, that's a big deal for Yara to get saved. That was one of my questions. Will she get saved? Is he going to have time to do it? Yeah, evidently it took 2 minutes.
And then they get separated again.
Yeah, and then is Jon gonna ride a dragon? Me, I'm not so much interested in that, but for the sake of the story, I'm vested in this. I want to know and what that does for our story. It's like, yeah, I guess he just does because Dany was willing to let him die or just assume that he might have some of her blood. It's very odd. It's like, how does John find out this information? Sam gets, really pissed off and yells at him. It's like, oh man, it feels like it's lost on me. The biggest impact this episode had on me was the beginning and the end, because that brought me back to the first episode. But it is what it is. It is interesting, and I think they did do a good job with Dickon, because Dickon, I feel an actual sense of loss, because he was dumb for following Randall into that execution, but he was sensitive, right? He showed us that he didn't like the killing when they were at the Reach, they're in the loot train. For the time they spent with him, I felt convinced that Sam and him could have been pals, that he was not a jerk, so they did foreshadow that well, and they did set that up well for him to have an emotional response to that. Did you guys feel like that was overblown or not? I see some people saying like, well, Sam is acting uncharacteristically, and he's enraged over a brother he didn't even know. It's like it seems like his brother was somebody he loved very much. So
I called this was how Sam was gonna feel. I think there's a point. This is why Bran told Sam to do this, to tell John in this manner what's happened. I think that's so John doesn't get too close at this moment and has everything in perspective. There's still a chance that they could end up together, but John has to step back for now until all this shit is over with, then he can deal with what's going on, because I know John's going to compartmentalize it. And I like the Sam scene. Like I see what you're saying with how it was delivered to John, but with everything else in the episode, I thought it was a strong point in the episode. Of course, I know nothing because I am Johnny Snow, but I did like it. Sam was probably one of the stronger points of the entire episode to me. Of course, I'll probably pick it back apart, going back and looking at it, because you make me think I'm wrong, Justin.
No, it wasn't the worst thing in the world by any means. I just, in general, a lot of big things on paper happened in 54 minutes, and I didn't feel like they happened. But again, it's the as a viewer, you feel like things are going to mean more, especially like a R plus L equals J thing being revealed finally to J. We've been waiting for so damn long that it's like, like there's no way to really live up to that anyways for them. So I mean, I don't feel like it was a poor choice. I find that interesting because, again, it brings us back to why is that piece of information from somebody that can see everything? Why is that the crucial piece of information he needs to convey? Everything else is just he screams it at people, and it's not even that. It's like, but John has to know. It's like, why in a story that does not really like embrace the idea that you should be like have the right blood to rule? That's not, the source material is not derived from somebody that feels that way. Why is this such a crutch? Like, why is this such a, like, what is this a catalyst for? Internal strife, or does this mean something bigger? I guess what Johnny just said is really logical. It means this is going to make him take a step back from Dany. But why does he have to take a step back from Dany? I guess it's a question. But like, what does this information do for John other than make him realize that the good-looking girl he's banging is not something he should be bragging to his friends about? I think what you just said there is that this is something bigger at hand here, that this is to separate them.
Yeah, and Dany will get a new nickname from Tormund when the parentage reveal comes to light, and everybody knows, because the Tormund in Eastwatch was the one with the dragons, or the one who fucks her brother. So that's like the one who fucks her brother or the one who fucks her nephew will be the defining factor in that relationship almost. Come on,
yeah. If my nephew are that would make him a nephew. Yeah, if my nephew got the green sight and I was in the most happy relationship in the world with a beautiful woman, and he came back to tell me that that woman was maybe a relation or something I did not want to know. I'm like, you're just a prick. I'm like, why'd you tell me that? He's like, I don't like you. I just don't like you. I didn't want you to be happy. Seems like a dick move. Just leave it let it lay. It does let Jamie be like, see, and everybody thought I was such a monster. It's cool. Or he's like, so I think that what we're gonna see in episode 2, I want to talk about this briefly and then we'll go off. somebody, a content creator that I really like, Kane McKay, he does something that's really smart from a sense of content creation and also really enjoyable. He always releases, he does this for Vikings too. Go and check him out. Somebody will link it in the information or in the chat right now. He does a breakdown of the quick, in the future episodes like to come section of every episode. So I think that those are really great videos, and it gives us insight into that until we dive into the huge in-depth video. So both as a viewer of content and a creator of content, I can appreciate that. So in the weeks to come, it's always previewed first, and he's got the preview for, it does look like the trial of Jaime Lannister. Any predictions? Because you have the green sight and you have been right a lot, Mackenzie, about all of the series that we talk about. You got any of that green sight for us? Do you think that we're going to see like a whole courtroom battle here or not?
Well, it looks like the ones at the table is Daenerys in the middle, Sansa on Daenerys's right, and I think Bran maybe, or Tyrion, or Jon, like the rest of them on her left, almost. So it's, and she talks about Viserys, which is like the first time since episode 6 she brings up Viserys, and she talks about how when they were children, they liked to plot the murder of Jaime Lannister when she would tell a bedtime story. But when you see that, Jaime looks over towards Sansa. So
I got a bold prediction.
Yeah,
That's a good point. Looking over towards Sansa, I think this is going to start off Jaime Lannister's trial, and it's going to end up being Dany's.
Ooh.
It's gonna get turned around.
You can't handle the truth.
Dun, dun, dun.
Do you think he was a little bit too surprised that like he's in trouble? Well, they did see him at the dragon pit, and she didn't say any of that stuff. But he's kind of like, oh, like when they see him, his eyes like kind of drop. Like he's like, oh shit. Especially in that breakdown. Like I said, check out. I want to take Kane McKay does some great videos with that, and I told him I might steal the format, so I'm gonna give him credit for that. That is very smart.
He was in the chat earlier, so.
Oh, he was? No, he's a great guy and a great content creator. So I just always love that because you get those quick little snippets. You can break that down and then move on. We all know how it is. We're all going to get back to making our videos after this to break down the huge episodes. So it's fun. And it's different too, because there's a lot of the episode break right away. So it's fun to see somebody talk about the in the weeks coming, which I couldn't think of a few minutes ago. I just wanted to make sure I could say the phrase in the weeks coming. Johnny, make your bold claim here. Give us a prediction.
Oh, my bold claim. We're gonna see, I don't know if this is a bold claim, but the shot from the trailer, we're gonna see the horse hoof and everything lead up at the end of this episode. We're gonna have a cold ending because the Night King's coming, and I don't think the Night King's gonna be there, and there's gonna be a little suspicion as to where he's at, and that I think Jon's gonna have to go off. And this is why they're going to have to fight on Dragonback. I think the Night King's going to launch a dual assault, and that's my bold prediction. Could be completely wrong about that, but I think there's going to be a dual assault by the Night King. Because Winterfell doesn't have that many people, honestly.
Is there a chance that remember how in the interview the actor talks about how he has a specific target? That specific target was, it's just technically correct. He didn't lie to us because he did have a specific target in killing Ned Umber. So, to strain him up. That is possible. I'm not, guys, don't people say like stupid stuff in interviews. This is just an actor that hasn't, he's like a stunt actor mostly from my understanding. So don't put it, trust me, I've screwed myself over putting too much weight in the words of people in interviews before. So this is the one interview that guy's ever given that I'm aware of, and he just screwed everything in my head about how I thought the series was going to end by saying that.
Yeah.
Also, how much time is there for Dany to have a baby? Are we getting a baby?
Hope not.
They've only
seems
had
like
sex.
We are, but we're not. It seems like we are, but we're not.
They've only had sex on screen once, so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and who knows? It takes
one time.
Sometimes, but if you've had two people that have had problems with that area in their bodies, who knows if that works? But it's seemingly like the entirety of the next episode will take place within the 12 to 24, maybe 48 hours. So unless she starts showing signs of pregnancy within the next episode, that may be an after-war plot line that they go with, like an episode 5 thing, and then they jump forward. But with Jaime kind of looking at Sansa's direction, she could say something about Jaime and who he is as a person and what he actually did for her, technically, for a lot of these people. Even though Dany doesn't like it, it'll be another back and forth, bitchy conversation between the two of them, and Sansa may stick up for Jaime and be like, it needed to happen because he's gonna kill everybody else. But yeah, like something like that.
Yeah, it makes me believe that number one, Dany is gonna survive the battle for sure, because I don't think they can pull off this baby in a time span that doesn't allow her past episode 3. So it seems like because I mean I'm just gonna go ahead and say it's not even bold. A baby's happening. I'm just trying to figure out how the hell that's gonna happen in this time span. She's gonna probably find out she's pregnant before she goes into battle and die in childbirth, I'm assuming. But I mean, do you guys think she can make it out of this alive, or make it to the end of our story alive? Because they all don't. Well, they technically do all disappear when the story stops. But let's stay immersed.
Well, there's supposed to be another. Well, because we get Miguel in 3 and 5. So unless it's a death in childbirth during battle, sure, then it's 5. But if it's 6, she could die in 6, and it's that whole, because mirroring, it'll be RLJ all over again. But in the sense of Dany may be having to go to Dragonstone to be safe enough to give birth. She goes with some 3 or 4 trusted people, Jorah, and a few other people. If granted, they all survive. Jon treats with Cersei, heads over. Dany's either dying in childbirth or dies before Jon gets there, and does the same thing like his father, and understands that whole thing, that he's never the history, and him having to repeat it himself. That's kind of the overall boldish prediction of that whole thing.
I like that because in the beginning we now see our story put into the gyrosphere, or whatever you technically call it. But the point is, it's now become part of their history, their own history, the War of the Five Kings. We're seeing these events, and eventually we're going to add this ending to it, right? Like all these crazy things that happened, like we're witnessing it, but everybody explains it away and puts it on a granite column if you're in Rome, or, you have Hadrian's column and stuff like that. It's like akin to that. How much of that is true, and so forth. We do get a little note on the Citadel that she's going to have to make some changes, which is nice. That needs reform.
So we'll give them back.
Yeah, and also good thing that Sam also saved her best buddy, turns out. So that's extra shit piled on top of him. She's like, and thanks again for saving my buddy. Thanks. Oh, no, thanks. I guess I owe you 1, or I owe you 2 because I killed your brother and your dad. So it's 2. So I'll get that back to you.
Oh, so, 3 things.
Well, I mean, I know you don't necessarily like these literalisms, Justin, but I'm going to throw one at you. Dany was the last Targaryen. Show watchers have been thrown this for a while to think that she is it. Now we have Jon. So there's not necessarily any reason for Dany to live. Hold on. Her foreshadowing of the House of Black and White, she does not touch that throne. Something's going to happen before she gets there. Jorah being saved by Sam. What we've seen happen with Sam. We know Jorah's going to get Heartsbane from the trailer. I think he's going to die in the Battle of Winterfell. But what if he has some kind of crisis of conscience and has to kill Dany? Oh, I know that's blasphemous, but it's just something that I thought of. Why would he also have Heartsbane? That is Sam's father's ancestral sword. And we've seen what happened with Sam. I don't know. 2 and 2 kind of just clicked together there. And that would go along the Nisa thing, because not Germ, what the hell? Jorah loves Dany. Now,
yeah,
will we get Lightbringer? I don't know.
Well, no, that goes exactly with how I feel about that. These events will workshop their way to that conclusion. So that's perfect, because just some dickhead named that sword. So it's not the gods, okay? We fulfill prophecy. It's self-fulfillment. The difference would be like, Azor Ahai having this idea in the godhead of his or hers, whatever. Or the red, I'm sorry, R'hllor, sorry, having the idea in their head and then like trying to like, have that fulfilled so they can, Deus Ex Machina, their powers down and save the day. That's nonsense. There's not a set prophecy that the god is fulfilling. There's this idea and belief system that their followers set up a rigid structure for some sort of prophecy, a prophetic happening, and we, for better or worse, try to make it happen. And we see the good that comes out of it, because there's some good. We see the unexplained remain to be unexplained, and we see people do good. Like Beric is an example too of doing good with it, right? He's done good. The Brotherhood Without Banners are, for the most part, a decent organization, and they're trying to do well. So it's not all burning babies and good times. Notice how I equate those to be the same thing. It's just, it's what people do with this belief system. So yeah, no, that's totally in line with me. I just think people are wrong. Like they workshop that in their head, and they're like, and that makes them the prophet, like, and that makes them the for sure one. It will never be figuratively fulfilled. I find that to be a fundamental misunderstanding of this story. Like the whole huge aspect of this story is watching the folly of that exact behavior. To come away from this and say, ooh, but it can be like, yes, we can workshop it so it works, and they can fulfill that, and that makes sense because that's how this keeps continuously happening, because they make sense of history and try to make sense of their lives and their existence. But no, like this isn't a story about the one sacred chosen one that needs to do it. It's just, like what John just said, that checks all the boxes right away. If I'm working as an ambassador or a lobbyist for that organization, that's my poster child. What Johnny just said, I'm like, yeah, see, it's real, and I'll sell it in a second. I'll fucking shill it. So I loved it. The episode was a little bit underwhelming, but let's face it, this is a story that's impacted us all on so many different levels for so many different reasons. So we are trying to check all of our boxes right now, just like I'm talking about. That's what this is. We are trying to make sense of it. We're trying to make it mean more for us, and expecting it to be the central source of pleasure in our life, our transitory pleasures, whatever Maester, what's his name, say. So a sure sign of it. But I loved it. It put us in where we need to be. Let's hope for a little bit more tiptoeing around and less stomping around from D&D. But I know we'll be talking about it more on Wednesday. I know I'm going to try to get a recap video out tonight or tomorrow, and I'm excited for the season. We got 5 episodes, so I feel weird even saying season, to be honest. But and thank you all in the chat for coming here, and these beautiful people are going to tell you where they can find you.
Yeah, thank you, Justin, for having me on. I'm Johnny B. Crazy. Find me at Johnny B. Crazy. A new Patreon, so I see some of my patrons out there. How are you doing? You know who you are. You have an extended breakdown coming. Some of the things I've said tonight I will be saying, but going in more depth. And tomorrow by about 2 o'clock, my breakdown will be released. As you know, I did about 3 streams in less than 24 hours, so I haven't had much time, but I've got all of my video recorded and ready to go. So you will see me Wednesday and also Friday. I do a Nooners of Ice and Fire kind of pre-show. We'll do some news throughout the weekend, just in general talk about the show and any upcoming events. 2 p.m. Eastern, Mondays and Fridays. Come check it out. Thanks, Justin, for having me on, man.
No problem. Really quick for my Patreons out there, since Johnny just said, I am going to bring you guys all out for ice cream. I'm taking you all out. So he might be doing what he's doing, but I think it's a little bit better to be over here with me. I'll take you guys all out. I don't want you to feel like he's giving more than I am. I got you guys. So yeah, I'll do that. And then I have an advance, showing for the rest of the series, which I'll also share with you. Sign up on my Patreon and make sure to get that. So no, I love to see you guys grow, and you guys have been a big help. Mackenzie, tell all of your Patreons where they can find you and everybody, and make sure not to make me look like I'm not giving my people.
Yes, I do have a Patreon. It's the same sort of thing. It's where we'll just do more live streams, more chats, I'll let
Ice cream.
Yeah, sure. We can talk about.
I'm not gonna steal your
Yeah.
idea, Justin. We'll never live that
I do
down.
sleepovers.
And yeah, so on Wednesday, the three of us, maybe with one other person, will be talking about this episode 4-episode club around 8:30 Eastern. And yeah, we'll just be breaking down the episode and talking more about it and having fun. Other than that, yeah, I got my reaction to the episode coming out. That should be released sometime tomorrow, if not Wednesday. I have 2 exams tomorrow, so this will be so much fun. But yeah, it was a great time. Great to be able to talk about this episode, and yeah, can't wait for the next opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a good time. Yeah, for $50, I will come to your house and scream about a Snyder beat sheet and proper story structure for screenwriting at the TV during the episode, and then you can pay me $50 to leave. So
or ice cream. Scream about ice cream too.
I'm lactose intolerant. That was I got to pull back on that offer.
I'll make you eat ice cream for 50.
Oh, see, yeah, that's punishment.
There
for me,
you
guys.
go.
See, yeah, I'll do it. I have no self-respect. I'll do it. So yeah, thank you guys, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. And check us out Wednesday, and hopefully we'll all have beautiful videos out by the morning if everything aligns, if the gods align. So we will see you guys next week.